Hey everybody, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today, as you can see, it's going to be Monster Party for the NES. A bit of a cult classic now when it comes to NES games. One I never actually particularly cared for up until, I guess, this last day or two, where I've finally actually gotten decent at the game. This game's actually been requested for my channel quite a bit over the years, and every time I've played it, I just have not been able to get into it. It's just the combat is really weird, the levels, honestly, are kind of boring for the most part, but lo and behold, I forced myself through the game multiple times, more times than I would like to say I've done in the last couple of weeks. Many frustrating moments in that journey, but we're at a point now where I've got the game down pretty well, and so what we're going to do here is play through the whole thing. I'm going to give you my strategies and tips that I've picked up along the way, either, learning stuff on my own or watching other, videos or looking at walkthroughs and things like that. So we're gonna talk about the game as we go through it. It is a really weird one in terms of mechanics, and it's also really weird thematically. That part I don't mind. It just took me a long time to get used to its game mechanics. So if you decide to check this one out for yourself, just be warned, there is going to be a learning curve, and but once you get the hang of things, it's actually not really a difficult game. It's just figuring things out is the difficult part, but once you got things down, it should be a pretty breezy playthrough. So let's go ahead and jump into this and hit start. You'll notice that it said continue on the title screen. You do get passwords, although they are rather long in this one. I'm assuming the passwords store all your information, like your health bar, state, and score, and things like that. I'm not sure about the score. I haven't actually used the password functionality. When I play old games like these, I actually don't use passwords anymore. I just go through the whole game in one sitting. Or I just turn it off, and then I'll fire it back up the next day, and I'll just start fresh instead of, jumping back in halfway through. So... but yeah, you are Mark, and Mark gets swooped away by Bert. I think his name is Bert. He's a dragon, and you can actually play as Mark and Bert in the game, and we'll talk about those mechanics, those character change mechanics, as we go through the game. But the story is quite wacky. This guy just appears out of nowhere, Bert, yeah, and he swoops Mark away, and it all culminates in a pretty wacky ending as well. So, if there's one thing this game has going for it, it is just the general wackiness of it. It definitely has a lot of charm in that regard, and that's a huge reason why people enjoy this game. I actually personally did not like this game really at all. Well, not at all, but from a gameplay standpoint, I didn't care for it at all. But now, now that I've finished the game a bunch of times and I understand how to deal with the hardest parts, it's not too bad. It's not like a Mega Man or Contra or Castlevania or something, but it might be worth playing if you just really like outlandish themes like this game has. So here we go. We're getting swooped up by Bert, and we're gonna get thrown into stage 1 in just a moment. Now you can skip through this. You can hit the start button, but because this is relatively short and we only see these cutscenes twice in the game, figured I might as well go ahead and just let them play out. So one thing about Monster Party, once we get into the game, we are going to be tanking a lot. Basically, meaning we're going to be absorbing damage and intentionally taking hits for certain bosses. A lot of bosses, I like to try to do them without taking damage or taking as least amount of damage as possible. But for the first couple of bosses, we're going to go ahead and just tank some hits. So... Monster Party has doorways that you have to go through, and doors in this game lead you to boss fights. And I've actually mapped out every door that we need to go to. So on stage 1, we need to go to this first door, and what I'm going to do here is just get close to this boss and just hold out my bat by pressing the B button and then jumping at the same time, and we'll do a bunch of hits. When you just hold out the bat like this, it'll just do hits in rapid succession, or you can just swing it like that, but you'll do damage much slower. So this is one of the bosses where I just tank hits from his projectiles. If I wanted to, I could sit back and knock them back at him, but I decided not to. I figured I'd take the quick kill route. Now, what's nice about certain enemies in this game is that they'll actually drop health. You get hearts, and they give you 2 hit points back on your bar. And so what I like to do in the beginning here is actually kill this guy over and over. What you need to do is actually go back into the door and then exit, and then he'll always drop a heart. Now, you can actually respawn enemies by scrolling them off the screen, or scrolling the screen over and then pushing it back, and then they'll reappear. In those cases, they're not always guaranteed to drop hearts, and so, but if you go inside this door repeatedly, you'll actually build up your health pretty quickly. So what I like to do is get my health probably about at least halfway up, and then continue progressing on. This guy should give us a pill. The pills in this game turn you into Bert, and so with Bert you can actually fly all over the place. What I like to do is actually kill this guy. He always gives me a heart. And there it is. I don't want to go into that door. That's door number 2. Nothing's really in there, so we're going to go ahead and skip it. We want to go to door number 3 according to my notes here. And then after that, we're going to go to door number 4. And the goal is to beat the bosses and then get yourself a key. Now this guy I think is completely optional. I don't think you have to actually come here, but I want to show it off anyway. If there are bosses I can show off, then I want to show them off. This guy's not really a boss, because as you saw, he said, "I'm dead." And so he's actually not really a boss. It's just, you know, the game is really goofy like that. You know, it's why people really like this game so much in this day and age. It's all the weird stuff like that. That just gives it its charm. So what I'm going to do is actually skip a bunch of these enemies here. They're not really mandatory to kill unless you're trying to go for high scores. Actually, what I'd like to do is come down here first. That way I can just jump over this guy. And we're going to go ahead and go into this door. And interesting, there was supposed to be a second eyeball guy here, but he didn't appear. So for this guy, I like to jump over him if I'm playing as Mark and just get behind him and just follow him and hold the bat out. So I took a hit there, nothing I could really do about that, but look at that. If you just follow the enemies and you've got your bat on them, you'll do rapid damage. And so we actually just got our key, and the key is mandatory to exit the level. There's a distinct looking door at the very end of each level. The door is actually different on every level you play. Now these parts right here, water and whatnot, it does hurt you, and it's hard to get out of it, but you will never instant kill yourself in this game. Also, these, you don't want to touch them. They will hurt you as well if you land on top of them. And let's wait for this guy to come back here, and we'll take the top route and just keep working our way along. Now you'll notice that this level changed visually halfway through. This is the only stage in the game, surprisingly, where that happens, and this is our exit door. So I kind of wish other levels in the game did the same thing, because I really like this visual style from just like a horror themed perspective, but it's the only level in the game that goes all out like that. So we're in level 2, so I need to hit the first door, the third door, and the 5th door. So there's going to be a door coming up here in just a moment, and also we want to go ahead and grab that heart. Those guys right there, it's best to sort of just jump and attack them. You'll do, you know, rapid hits much faster than you would if you're just, you know, poking the enemies one by one. So here's our first door, and thus our first boss. This is another boss where we're just going to tank. So we're going to go ahead and just keep jumping up like this and hope that we don't take too many hits. You'll notice I'm doing 2 hits every time I go up and then go back down. Now, what's really cool about playing as Mark is that he can reflect projectiles back. And from this point on, we'll be demonstrating that quite a bit in the playthrough. So these crocodiles right here, they shoot out projectiles. And so you want to fling it back to kill them in one hit. Otherwise, they take several hits to take down. And here's Bert again. And we're going to go ahead and just work with him. And so yeah, again, I need the third door. Although there are technically 2 doors in the same area that I count both as, you know, the third door. But we need to go into the one that's in the middle. And I'll point that out once we get there. We'll be there in just a few moments. Now, one thing I like to do with Bert is I like to taper my attack. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I go too fast, my bullets will actually go through enemies because they have invincibility frames. And so that's a door we don't need up there. So we're going to go ahead and just keep working our way down. Now, your characters can duck in this game, and they can avoid a lot of projectiles. Look at how low they duck, and look at Mark going across the ground like a worm. It's pretty funny. Some pretty funny stuff in this game. But the ducking is actually very, very useful. So like these projectiles, I can just sit right underneath them like so. Now, you can whack this guy 1,000 times. It takes a long time. Or you can just smack his projectile back in his face. Now, I've noticed that the projectile smacking, or the projectile reflecting or deflecting, whatever you want to call it, is very particular. And again, we need to go into that middle door right there. So I'm going to try to take Bert all the way down there. There should be a ladder that'll take us down. And this will be our next boss fight. But yeah, you know, the reflecting mechanic is very, very important in this game. It does a ton of damage, and what I found is that if you want to shoot things straight ahead, you need to sort of, you know, hit the projectiles with the outer tip of your bat. If you don't get it just perfectly, the projectiles will go in all sorts of different directions. And so this is the infamous shrimp boss and onion ring boss. So what we want to do is actually just duck underneath it. And it'll just bypass us, and then we want to, you know, basically, you know, trail behind it with our bat out, just like we were doing with the pumpkin boss earlier in the playthrough. So just duck, and then just time your jumps just right. If you're too late, you'll notice that you'll miss it, and so you won't be able to catch up with them. So you have to wait for them to come back around, just like that. I messed up again, so let's try it again. Boom, there we go. Better timing that time. Alright. And now these question marks that appear, they give you various items. They can give you some health back, they can give you points, they can turn you into Bert, things like that. There are some question marks that appear too that you can't actually collect. I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just a you know, a nasty glitch. Funny thing, you can also knock these projectiles back too. And you know, knocking projectiles into enemies will typically kill them in one hit. Just like so. So if you have a chance to do that, oh, that would have been really good if that collided with him. That would have been pretty awesome. Would have been the first time I did that. But I can, yeah, you'll notice that I didn't hit it just in time, and so it flung up just like so. Boom, there we go. So the collision with the bat is definitely a little goofy. It takes a long time to get used to. I'm still inconsistent with it, as you can see. And so what we're going to do is, I think we actually need to go into that door. So we skipped out on our 4th door. And we have to hit our 5th door. And I think I can actually just take the bottom route here. Yeah. So if I took that ladder, I would have had to climb back down. But with Bert, you can just fly up too. You don't have to actually take the ladders, which is nice. You know, as long as you've got Bert and he hasn't changed back to Mark, you can just fly in the air as long as you want as well. And so for this part, I'm going to try to keep a slight distance here and just dodge these plates. It looks like it's throwing plates at me. With Mark, I like to sit back in the distance and just reflect them back in safety. It takes a little while, but it's a lot safer than being up in his face. Now, one thing I try to do when I play this game is make sure I don't lose too much health, and the reason for that is the last level in particular can be a little nasty, and if you don't get to the last level with a lot of health, you're going to struggle with actually completing that level, and you'll have to try to do it over and over again. Now, when you continue in this game, your health does revert back to its default state, so maybe, I don't know, maybe about a quarter of it, or maybe a third of it. So, you know, you've got to be careful in this game. You don't want to continue if you want to raise your chances of survival. And so I'm going to wait and just reflect this back, assuming I can time it right. There we go. And I've got the key, which means I can go ahead and use this exit door right here. Gotta wait for that to come down. I'll show you how long it takes to kill these guys manually. I mean, I've already shown it once, but it takes a little while, so... Look at how weak Mark's bat is compared to reflecting objects back in enemies. It's pretty crazy. Alright, so stage 3, we need to go into doors 2, 3, and 5. So we're going to skip the first door that appears right at the very beginning. These spikes that fall down, you can just keep holding forward and you'll pass these initial ones right here. And but from these ones and on, it's best to try to trigger them by getting close. So this is our first door. And we've got these jumping skeletons. You can actually go underneath the skeletons if you want to just skip the enemies, but it's a little tricky. And I took a lot of damage there, but it's okay, we'll get our health back. It was only 3 blocks, actually. You notice that your health bar is really big in this game, which is nice. You'll also notice that Bert is pink now. He actually changes colors over the course of the playthrough, as does Mark, although Mark doesn't really get any upgrades. I think Mark's change is more of a palette thing. Whereas Bird's is an actual upgrade, so he'll eventually go from pink to yellow. And so what we're going to do here is actually try to just fly over this guy over and over. He throws cows at you. So while I've got Bert here, I'm going to try to play it safe. But we are going to switch back to Mark, and once we switch over to Mark, we want to reflect the cows back. And there it is. And now this guy doesn't really have a hitbox on the top of him, and so what you can do is actually jump through him like so, assuming he doesn't walk backwards. Some of these bosses can be a little random. Their movement can be random, which can be a little aggravating and frustrating actually, because, you know, I'm very much a control kind of player where I like to control, you know, everything that happens in the game if possible. You know, it's fun to me, but the randomness can really get me sometimes. Alright, so let's go ahead and just jump over that guy. Now you notice that enemies in this game, they have a tendency of just going up against sort of an invisible wall or boundary, and though they won't pass that, and that's how pretty much every enemy in this game works, just about. And so when you're first starting to play this game and you feel like killing everything, what you want to do is watch the enemies, just stop and watch. There's no timer in this game, but stop and watch the enemies, and you know, watch what they're doing, watch where they stop, and then you can just get outside their boundary and shoot them with Bert or whack them with the bat with Mark. And so for this guy, as you can see, I'm just keeping my distance here. And so that was door 3, so I need to skip the next door and then go to door 5. Now these bats turn into umbrellas as opposed to bats that just fly around. It's pretty goofy stuff, but again, it's pretty funny. You know, that's the appealing thing about this game. I don't think it's a great game from a gameplay standpoint, but from just thematically, it's definitely out there, and it's one of a kind on the NES, and honestly, it's kind of one of a kind in general to begin with. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and skip that door. And then the next door that we find will be our last boss for this level, and then we'll be able to, you know, exit right afterwards. And in this level, you get the key right before the exit, so it's pretty convenient. And there we go. And trust me when I say it's worth knowing where to go in this game, which doors to go into, simply because the game can get really tedious if you're going in and out of every single door. Now, there is a benefit sometimes to going in and out of every door. Sometimes question marks will appear in empty rooms, or even, I don't think they reappear in boss rooms you've been to, but empty rooms will sometimes have question marks in them, so you might get an upgrade, but, I mean, you get upgrades in the main, you know, in the main levels themselves anyway, so it's not really, you know, that big of a deal. It's not really worth going out of your way to track them all down, unless you're trying to get a high score or something. But even then, scoring in this game is sort of pointless, no pun intended, because you can just grind out enemies all day, so the score is pretty much meaningless. But, you know, it is what it is. So here's the exit. This is going to take us to stage 4. Now, I will say the first half of the game is longer than the second half of the game, so while it's taken us, you know, a little bit of time to go through each of these levels, we're 17 minutes in, and we've only done 3 stages. The second half of the game is much shorter, if you ask me. The levels go a lot faster. So a couple different things you can do with these guys. You can try to reflect their shot back, or what I like to do sometimes is just hit them twice. And that was an absolutely terrible example. I'll try to have a better example later on in the playthrough. We have to deal with a bunch of those guys on this level. So that's our first door. We don't need that, but what we do need is our second door. I'm going to smack this crocodile in the face 3 times. So here's an example. You can just knock their projectiles back in their face. And so that's the second door up there. So we're going to have to go right and then work our way back up. And this guy's pretty tough to deal with. So what you want to do is kind of jump and attack with Mark, where you don't really have a choice at this point. You're usually with Mark at this point in the level. But you reflect his projectiles back in his face and he dies in 1 hit. This guy says he's a slowpoke, and so what you can do is just... I prefer to get kind of close to him because he'll shoot his projectiles, you know, downwards. And he doesn't seem to want to be doing that. He is a little random. But again, like the big green guy that shot out, you know, cows, he doesn't have much of a hitbox, you know, above his legs. And so, you know, you can just jump over him when he corners you. So bosses like this I think are pretty fun, because you can control the flow of the battle pretty much, outside of, you know, the random angles that his swords shoot out at. But all you have to do is just hit him in the legs. And I don't want to get up close and poke him with my bat because, you know, he's always running towards you. And so a lot of times, you know, you'll end up, you know, taking a hit or something like that. Alright, so now we need to go to door number 3, which is going to be on the bottom route. So I want to fling these projectiles back at this guy. If I can get the timing just right. He dropped a heart, which is good. And we want to take this bottom route right here, which will take us to our next boss. Now these rocks, I don't know if they can be destroyed by just shooting them with you know, Bert's projectiles or hitting them with Mark's bat. But if you manage to reflect a projectile into them, they will actually die in one hit, just like, you know, normal enemies. So it's kind of interesting. All right, so for this cat right here, what I want to do is just kind of sit back a little bit and then just knock his projectiles back into him. If I wanted to, I can just tank. But I'm not going to in this boss. I like to actually try to do this one kind of legitimately. I mean, tanking is a legitimate strategy as well, but, you know, staying back from distance and not taking damage is satisfying. Now, you can get a little bit closer. When he shoots them diagonally, sometimes you'll be able to pop them up in his face, but it's very inconsistent. I think the angle that the enemies get flung back at is based on where they touch your bat. And your bat is so small in this game, it's very difficult to gauge whether, you know, they're going to go really high up or just more at a 45-degree angle. It's really tough to gauge. So, but if you can fling fling these enemies back at the cat in the box, it's pretty satisfying. If you can do it consistently, really quickly. I'm not doing it very quickly, but we haven't taken a hit yet, so that's nice. There we go. All right, he's done. All right, so that was door 3. We need to work our way back up, and then we're going to go to door number 5. So we're going to skip the next door that we see. 1, 2, and 3. Sometimes I won't be able to hit them 3 times without taking a hit, so I'll hit them twice, and then I'll move back. Come on. There we go. That was good. Alright, so we're going to skip the next door. And I'm going to probably... I don't know. On your first playthroughs, I recommend trying to kill everything because that'll let you figure out where the power-ups are. Burt power-ups in particular are static. Well, granted, some enemies can drop question marks, and sometimes the question marks can give you the Burt power-up, but the Burt pills are typically static. And, yeah, so, you know, you can use that. Oh, there we go. We actually killed it instantly, which is nice, so I'm going to hit him. Oops. Alright, whatever. Let's just tank a couple hits. Oh, yep, took another hit. But there's Burt. And we're going to go ahead and just skip this door, as we mentioned earlier. Oh, took a hit. I was a little too fast there. That was my fault. Not a big deal. And then this is our boss. This is our boss. It gives us our key. So what I like to do is actually get behind him, because he doesn't come all the way back to the right-hand side. So as long as you've got Burt, it's easy to get behind him. You can get behind him with Mark by ducking underneath him, but there's a good chance you're gonna get, you know, take damage from his projectiles that just shoot in all different directions. I think his projectiles are just completely random. And look at that! That question mark actually re-upped my Burt power-up. And so what we're gonna do now is actually just work our way towards the end of the level. And having Burt is great. It makes things go significantly faster. Like with this guy right here, you'd have to get on the edge, which is difficult to do, and then knock his projectiles back in his face. Same with this guy right here. But with Burt, I don't have to do that. I can just snipe these guys from a distance, which is always satisfying. Now, I'm gonna actually let Burt go away, because this guy's a little difficult to get past without taking a hit. He's actually easier to deal with Mark, because I can just knock Mark. I can knock the projectile up in his face. If I can time it right. There we go. Very, very tricky. Very, very tricky. So, alright. That level's down. Now we're on to Stage 5. Stage 5 is a really easy level, as long as you don't try to kill all the enemies. And what we need to do on Stage 5 is go into doors 3 and 4. So the first handful of doors we can actually skip through. We're going to go ahead and just sort of jump over these guys. That's door number 1. We don't need to go into door number 1. Now this guy will actually give me Burt, and that's door number 2 right there as well. Now remember, this water just hurts you. It doesn't kill you instantly. Now having Bert for this next boss though is kind of pointless, so having Bert isn't really a big deal, but you notice that we actually shoot out 2 projectiles now, which is quite nice. So this boss is really interesting. It's not really a boss. It says, watch my dance. And so all you have to do is just sit here, just don't touch the controller, and the boss will eventually just die on its own. Now you can actually hit it, just like so, and they'll just come back, and I think their timer on their dance might reset. So let's watch their dance. Here, we'll dance with them. Actually, I don't know if moving is going to affect how long the dance goes on. You might have to actually just let it sit here. No, it works. You can dance with them. That's good. Alright, so again, doors 3 and 4. We just need to go into door 4. Which is going to be our next one. And I'm going to wait for this guy to move over to the left so I can jump over him. And here we go. So this guy has, you know, you can try to attack him from down below. What I recommend doing is jumping onto this block right here. Now what sucks about this boss is there's actually a lot going on screen. And so sometimes your inputs will get eaten. And knocking these projectiles back perfectly in his face is tricky as well. Notice that a bunch are just going over his head. And there we go. You can also jump on some of these rocks too. Just like so. Alright, so that's it for this level. All we have to do now is just dodge everything, and we go on to stage 6. Now this is a really tight jump right here. I've never actually managed to get it, so it's almost like you're forced to go into the water. And I got really lucky with the water, so if you jump into the water, you kind of want to like jump right as you touch it. Just like that, but the timing is super tight. It's gotta be, I swear it's gotta be like frame perfect or something close to that. It's pretty ridiculous. So just don't touch the water if you can avoid it. And look at this, this is actually kind of nice. I'll get Bert going into our next level. Maybe. Look at how many hits those guys take, and that's with Bert. Bert is way more powerful than Bert. Sorry, Bert is way more powerful than Mark. So, you know, if that enemy takes that long to kill with Bert, it takes like twice as long with Mark. And there's our unique door with the key. We can go into it, even though it's standing wide open. So clearly you don't need a key, but... you don't need a key, but you do need a key. That's how the game works. Alright, so this level is quite something. This is a maze level. And I think I've got this one down. I practiced it a little bit last night. And so we'll see if I got the right path. So what we want to do is go to our third door here. And I'm probably going to skip this guy with Mark. You can actually shoot those fireball projectiles, but interestingly, you can't actually knock them into enemies. It's one of the few projectiles that you can knock back that won't actually damage enemies. Now, something I didn't mention earlier is when you do reflect projectiles back, you actually get points. So if you're trying to score in this game, it might be worthwhile to just, you know, reflect these back as much as possible. Alright, so we go into this door, and we don't really have much of a choice here. So we take this door, and more projectiles here. Let's see if we can, whatever. Sometimes I get lazy in this level just because it's a little irritating. But what we're going to do is come in here, because if we hit this chair, we'll actually turn into Bert. So this is actually a really good tip right here, is go into that second door to convert into Bert. You're going to want him for the boss fight. And so now we come on down here. And we take this second door, which takes us to the boss. The boss is in a different area than the exit is. And there's only one boss in this level. And this is kind of an interesting one. You need to hit the mask that blinks when you hit it. The other masks won't actually damage you. You just have to hit the one that that can collide with you. All right, so now we have to work our way to the exit. And so what we're going to do is come in here. And I think we come in here. We don't actually have to come in here. So let's go ahead and go this way. And we're going to take this second door right here. Or third door, technically. Right there. And what we're going to do is take this door right here. And then boom. Wow, first try. That's the first time I've gotten it on my first try. It's a lot to remember. It's a maze level, so you get thrown all over the place if you take the wrong door, and some doors will kick you right back to the very beginning. So these last two levels are by far the shortest, and and one other thing I hadn't touched on is every time you beat a level, you do get health back. So if my health is, you know, if I've lost a couple pellets, it's not really a big deal, because when I beat the level, I'm going to get them back. And so for this one, we want to take our first door, but I do want to kill this guy, which should turn us into Bert. Boom, just like that. Now, there is a fun strategy you can do with Mark on this guy, but with Bert, we're going to sort of take the easy route and try to play it relatively safe. So I can just let him go across the screen like that, if I'm trying to play it safe. Oh, took a hit. So what I do with Mark is, when the guy gets close to me, I basically jump and attack, like, towards him, as he's, like, really close to me, and I'll just go over him. I'll clip him without taking any damage. So, alright, so we need to go into our third door, and that'll give us our key. Now, there is another boss later on in this level. This level will really troll you, where if you beat that boss, it steals the key from you. But if you don't beat the boss, or if you don't fight the boss, then it doesn't have a chance of doing that. Also, what you can do here... I'm pretty sure this is door number 2, I've lost count. What you can do here with Bert is just fly up really quickly. And just kind of ignore all the enemies if you want. Just go right to the ladder. And this right here, this guy's gonna drop a pill. So we can keep our Bert going. And this guy's just stacked right on top of me. That's okay, not a big deal. And now we have to fight a Grim Reaper. Welcome, entrance to hell. So with Bert, what you can do is try to avoid these projectiles. They're a little, it's easier said than done. They like to just sort of target you like so. Notice that they're sort of going in a sort of triangular pattern. But we've got the key now. So now all we have to do is go to the top of the stage. And actually, let me go ahead and re-up my Bert. So every time you pick up a pill, you'll actually, you know, Bert's timer will basically refresh. So Bert's basically on a timer as far as I'm aware. And he only lasts so long. And that's a heart. And we should be good on health. By, you know, when we beat this level, we'll get all of our health back. So we just fly up here quickly. And on the right-hand side of the screen, oftentimes you'll actually see a floor counter. That'll tell you how high up on the level that you are. So this is our last one. And there we go. So on to stage 8. And stage 8 is our final level in the game, so this one will go relatively quickly, much like stage 7. But the first thing you need to do on stage 8 is shoot this guy so you can grab Bert again. If you're playing as Mark, the next boss is pretty much impossible. And this boss, you just have to tank. It's just what you have to do. No choice about it, unfortunately. This guy is completely random, and he just likes to target you. So in this level, I also start using Bert's ground attack more often, like this. Just like so. His split attack like that, you can't fire it a second time until it goes completely off screen. Or it disappears. But we should be able to get Bert again, which we're going to use in the next couple of bosses. So we don't need that second door right there. We do need the third door though, which will be coming up here in just a moment. So I like to use his ground attack against these enemies in particular. Because one thing that you'll notice is that, you know, when you're using your dual attack, sometimes they'll just go right through the enemies. It's really aggravating. So by using his ground attack, you're much more likely to actually hit these guys. Now these witches, they actually take a while to kill. If you get some of them that are on the ground, or close to the ground like this, you can actually kill them with Bert. Kind of like so. And that was actually really good. And I think this is empty. We basically need doors 1, 3, and 5. And I went into door number 4 right there. What's behind door number 4? Nothing. Alright, so we're gonna come into this door, and this guy's really interesting too. I used to try to fly above him, like so. But funny thing, you could just duck underneath him. I actually learned that from a speedrun video I watched. So, very interesting stuff. That's why it's actually really fun, like, looking at speedrunners play some of these games, because, like, sometimes they'll have tricks that, like, you won't even think about trying. I never would have thought to try to duck underneath that guy. But again, like I said, despite your sprites looking kind of large when you're ducking, at least with Bert, the hitbox for your duck position is really, really small. Very, very small. It's super tiny. I just got some health back from that witch. Now this is on to the final boss. Now you can reflect the witch projectiles back into them, but it's very difficult to do. So it's not something I really recommend trying. Yeah, very difficult to do successfully, so not even worth the effort. You can also fling these stars back. I'm gonna go ahead and collect Bert right here. I actually prefer Mark for the final boss, because I'm less likely to take as much damage, and you'll see why in just a few moments. But this is our the end of the level. Takes us into stage 9, but it's not really stage 9, it's just a separate boss fight. Now, if you die at this final boss, you have to do stage 8 over again from the beginning. You beat everybody. Beat me and you can leave. Come and die. So what we want to do is just fly over these eyeballs, and occasionally his nose will open up, and when that opens up, that's when we can attack it. And avoiding these eyeballs is a lot easier said than done, so we're going to end up taking a bunch of hits here. It takes about 7 hits with Bert to kill this guy. And it takes, I think, maybe about 20 with Mark. And boom, that's it. And actually didn't take that much damage. That's probably my best final boss yet with Bert. So, here's the wacky ending that we get to play out. Mark destroyed the monsters. Bert gave him a gift. And Mark went home. He excitedly opened the box. A beautiful princess came out. These sentences are really short and simple. But suddenly, the princess became a monster. And more monsters appeared. Or more monsters followed her. Mark was scared and screamed. And then Mark dissipates. He melts. But it was all a dream. Mark was awakened by his mother, or his mom. You'll be late. It was a dream. I'm leaving. These sentences are so short and simple. But Mark opens the door, and Bert was there. He whispered to Mark, "Let's go again." So that's it. That's Monster Party, guys. I hope you enjoyed that playthrough. Very, very awkward game to play. It takes a while to get used to. And honestly, I didn't think the game was that much fun until I got used to it. But I've kind of warmed up to it since learning this one. But for all you guys that had requested this over the years, I hope you are satisfied. Hope you were satisfied with this playthrough. I'll be back with some more horror-themed content for the rest of October here. And yeah, I'm going to try some Castlevania ROM hacks, and I've got some other things planned for live streams and things like that. So, but yeah, that's Monster Party. Hopefully, again, you guys enjoyed that. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, be sure to post a comment down below. If you're new to this channel and you like Let's Plays like this, be sure to subscribe. I've got hundreds of Let's Plays on my channel, and probably hundreds more to come. If everyone already subbed, thank you for your usual support. Hope you guys continue to enjoy getting these videos. And until the next one, take it easy.